I've always wanted to be a superhero. It's a little bit of an exaggeration, I'm sorry. There was a brief time where I wanted to be a dinosaur before being informed that is apparently physically impossible, which I'm still a little bit salty about. But even then, after that, it was all about being a hero. It wasn't necessarily always the kind of traditional cape and tights superhero that you see in the movies, but when I daydreamed as a kid, I always kind of imagined myself as a knight in armor standing up to a tyrant, or as a Jedi with a lightsaber. No matter the genre, the fantasy was always the same. It was me, or a cooler, braver, more fit version of me, standing up to evil, protecting the helpless, saving the day. I actually remember exactly when that fantasy turned into being about superheroes. This was my sophomore year of high school, May 2002, opening night of Sam Raimi's Spider-Man, starring Tobey Maguire, the first one. At that point, I wasn't a superhero guy, didn't know anything about Spider-Man, didn't know anything about the Marvel Universe, there was no MCU at that point. But by the end of that movie, I had a new daydream. Now, when I thought about being a hero, I pictured myself in a costume and a mask, soaring above the city streets, protecting ordinary people from dangers large and small. That's not an unusual daydream. I'm sure several of you have, maybe many of you have indulged in that yourselves. But I want to give you a little bit of context for why it was so powerful for me. I just turned 16 earlier that week, so I was old enough to know about the world's problems, but still young enough to feel like I didn't have the power to do anything about them. The 9/11 attacks had happened earlier that school year, and we were at war. I felt the way that I imagine a lot of you guys have felt in recent years, maybe even today when you look at the news. Like the world was on fire, and I didn't know what to do to help. But in my daydreams, I could just put on a mask, fly out the window, and go save people, maybe even save the world. The other reason that Spider-Man in particular captured my imagination was that Peter Parker was a lot like me. As a kid, I was shy, unathletic, and I got picked on a lot. I often felt lonely and misunderstood. Peter was all those things too, but then he got these incredible powers. And he still had problems, which is something that I've always loved about Spider-Man. But for the first time, people love him and appreciate him. People cheer his name. And even though most of the world doesn't know that it's him, on some base level, Peter Parker gets to prove everybody who ever doubted, mocked, or rejected him wrong. So my daydreams about being a superhero really had two motivations. One was a genuine desire to do something good, to make the world a better place. But second was a desire for people to see me as a hero, to have crowds chanting my name, world leaders giving me medals, everyone who used to make fun of me going, oh, I guess we were wrong about him. So right about now, a lot of your teachers are probably turning to each other and saying, why is he talking about Spider-Man so much? Is Spider-Man in the Bible? I don't get it. What are we doing here? What's going on here? So let me tie this back into Ash Wednesday to make this a little bit clearer. We heard some really excellent and challenging readings today. But I'll be honest, when I was looking at them and reflecting on this reflection, I struggled in thinking about how I was going to make them relatable for you guys. Because in my decade plus of high school campus ministry, a problem that I gotta say I've never encountered is that teenagers take Lent too seriously. No offense, but it's true. It's not like I'm walking out on the plaza and seeing guys in like burlap sacks going, "Have mercy on me, Lord, I'm a sinner!" That's just not really a problem that I've had to encounter in this context. But I think that what you can relate to is this idea of doing the right things, maybe not always for the right reasons. Sometimes we do something good and then immediately feel like we need to tell people about it. Because if nobody knows and can tell us we did a good job, what's the point? Kind of a waste of time, right? Or on the other hand, have you ever felt the need to post or share something on social media because you want people to know that you're a good person? You want to make sure that the people you agree with know that you have the right opinions, that you care about this thing too. That's something I used to do all the time. I would write these long, long Facebook posts. I'm a millennial, so I use Facebook, sorry. And every time something happened in the news, I felt like I basically had to make a statement because otherwise people wouldn't think that I cared about it, which is ridiculous. People weren't kind of hovering over their phones waiting for John Doherty to release his statement on the news of the day. That was really all about me and how I wanted people to see me. I believe that we all share the same desire to do good, and that also on some level we all share that desire to be recognized for doing good. That can be dangerous. We risk poisoning our good acts by making them all about us. In the gospel, Jesus is talking about hypocrites, people who make a big show of all the good things that they're doing. And he says 3 times, so that you get the point, "Amen, I say to you, they have received their reward." Meaning that they're getting exactly what they want. They're getting the spotlight. The good acts aren't making them more loving or more generous or more holy. They aren't growing closer to God or to others. They say they're glorifying God, but they're really just glorifying themselves. God doesn't want the big show. Our first reading sums it up perfectly. Rend your hearts, not your garments. Rend is a kind of, if you don't know, an old-fashioned word meaning like tear. So the idea that penitents would kind of be like tearing their clothes, like the Hulk. Tie it back to the superhero thing, to show like how bad they felt about their sins. If we really want to serve God and others, then what we have to do is put our whole heart into selfless acts. Go out of your way to help someone. Spend some intentional time in prayer and silence. Have the courage to go to confession, or to ask someone you've hurt for forgiveness, or to forgive someone who's hurt you. And when you do, don't make a big deal out of it. Don't post about it. Don't tell anybody about it if you don't have to. Let those good acts be their own reward. I'm not a superhero. None of us are. The ways in which we can make the world a better place are a lot more ordinary and a lot simpler. Most likely, there won't be any crowds cheering your name or parades in your honor. But if you do good with a selfless heart and a spirit of humility, God will see, and I believe that you'll be rewarded for that. And even though this isn't the point, other people will notice too, the people who really matter. And maybe your good acts will inspire them to perform some of their own. Those are the sorts of heroes that we're going to honor in a little bit later today with the Spirit Awards. The quiet leaders, the ones who do what's right simply because it's the right thing to do. That's the sort of person that we should all hope to be. And Lent is a great time to get ourselves on the right track. So I want to encourage you to make the most of this holy season. Make it an opportunity to grow closer to God, who's always waiting for us with open arms. Take the chance to set aside harmful habits or to heal broken relationships. Rend your hearts, not your garments. Do good, and let that be its own reward.